Gee.
What you see here, folks, has been happening everywhere. I took it upon myself after range rolled me through the hot coals, got my farm, had several different law firms lie to me, screw me over, take my money. I had a 3-acre pond turn black. DEP said that range did not do it. I started connecting the dots when I saw deer dead. Not only that, I used to work in the oil and gas industry. What I saw and what I witnessed on my farm, I was totally blown away because I was totally unaccustomed to what I was seeing. I used to work for Hughes Tool Company, which was Howard Hughes' company. I worked there a short time, but I also worked for another company selling drilling tools and also drilling rigs. So what people didn't know in Pennsylvania, you know, this industry kept saying, well, this is just conventional drilling, you know, these were going to be verticals, blah, blah, blah. They never said anything about horizontal. I was the second horizontal well drilled in Pennsylvania. And I figured that out. But long story short, when I saw the flow back, well, actually not the flow back water, but when I saw the flow pits and I saw what color they were, I started asking questions. Why is that water black? Well, it's biodegradable, I was told.
Okay.
I was also told when I did see the chemicals with the skull and crossbones up against the high wall, I asked, what is that? They said it's biodegradable. I said, well, buddy, I want you to take a cup and I want you to drink it. Well, I can't do that. I said, why are you insulting my intelligence?
For real. You
know, I tried to work with these people as best I could. And a lot of people will come to me, you're a greedy bastard. Why'd you sign a lease? This had nothing to do with money. Both of my grandparents had vertical wells on their properties. They had free gas. That's what I was looking for. That was it. I was one of the last ones to sign a lease. Something in my gut said there was something not right here. It was a 7-year lease. I knew nothing about leases. I knew about production. I knew about how to drill a hole and what products to use, what tools to use, how much weight to use, how many RPMs to turn, how much air pressure to use, but I knew nothing about leasing. Well, I got $7.50 an acre.
Yeah.
Oh.
Wow.
On the lease stipulated 300,000 cubic feet of gas free a year. That was the hook. Mm-hmm. Everyone signed pretty much. And I kept thinking, 300,000 cubic feet of gas a year, that's a lot of gas. There's no way in God's green earth you'd ever burn 300,000 cubic feet of gas a year in a house. Anyway, the individual that gathered these leases lives in Harrisburg, works for the Pennsylvania Game Commission. His name is Bill Kapulias. I'd love to meet Bill again. I truly would. I hope he hears this. He gathered the leases, he bundled them, he sold them for God knows how much. He was our middleman. He was going to help you. But actually, he got us 14% royalty. He gets 0.5% every month. He's got one hell of a 401k program going for himself. He also took, we got $8.50 an acre, and he took 75 cents an acre. So you could see how this game works. And when we had problems, try to get hold of the man, see if he'd do anything for you. My neighbors were calling me, he won't call me, he won't call me. I said, well, we've been hosed. And the more I dug into this, the uglier it got. Again, when my pond turned black, the overflow pipe was an 18-inch overflow pipe. The stream looked like black velvet from bank to bank. I asked the DEP, what's this? Get Range Resources out there, what's this? All the vegetation in my pond died because the pond turned black for about a week and then it settled out. And another individual who worked for Range Resources, said he thought one of the flow pits leaked. Well, he said, I think a flow pit leaked. Well, I went to the top of the locations, to the well pads, because there were 2 well pads up there. And again, I happened to be the second horizontal well drilled in Pennsylvania. And of course, I had water. I had that 3-acre pond. And that pond took in over 300 acre watershed. They pumped 7 days a week. They filled 141 tanks. Now visualize a tractor trailer running down the highway. That's 141 of those tanks went past my house, up over the hill, and parked them. So you can imagine the excavation that was done. I fought with them about silt fence. They didn't have any silt fence up along my pond. When it rained, well, they finally put it in after I kept fighting with them. Then when all the mud and everything was coming down, because the top of the well site, the elevation probably from the top of the pad to the maybe top of the pond water, I'm guessing it's probably more than this, but I was roughly guessing 150 feet. So naturally, everything's running down right into the pond. So in the back of the pond, there was over a foot of silt. So that was their sediment pond. So I'm fighting with them on that issue. Plus the garbage. Plus the defecation. Guys were defecating all over my property. I could have found 100 places. I had a black lab. She's deceased now, but I would come home, and it's a good thing I'm not afraid of poop. I've cleaned enough of it being raised on a farm. So I'd scrub the dog down. So my 2 little ones, because I got married late in life, I have a 6-year-old and a 7-year-old. So meanwhile, my wife doesn't know what's going on. I'm the only one figuring this mess out. I'm a mess. You know, I'm so mad I want to hurt somebody. This is what you got to realize, this is your castle. This is what you work for your whole life, and you're watching it be destroyed. And nobody would help you. Nobody.
Yeah.
The township supervisor, we can't do anything.
Right.
You know, there's that Pennsylvania Oil and Gas Act. It's this thick. You think I'm going to read that? I said, you're our wall. What are you doing? Oh, they'll break us. We can't beat them. I'm like, oh my God. Okay, then I said, all right, you guys need to come down and look at what they're doing. They wouldn't come. Well, anyway, long story short,
That's how I felt too.
they set me up. They pulled the oldest game in the book. They did a bait and switch. They wanted me to use a realtor that they were familiar with, that they had used before, and they baited me with another farm. Now, meanwhile, you got to keep this in mind. I fought with these people 05, 06, 07. I'm to my wit's end, and now I'm panicking, and I'm not a type of person that panics. The chemicals would really have me worried. That's what was scaring me the most. And my water well was discolored. And I've got 2 little ones. And I've got the truck traffic, which is only approximately 38 yards from my house. It's just every day, in, out, in, out. Guys going in 3rd gear past my house. I'm listening to them shift. I'm out there running up after them, slow these trucks down. I'm arguing with range resource. Get up. Any industrial, any work site, you need a 5-mile-an-hour speed limit. 5 mile an hour. I could guarantee you I had guys going up on my driveway 45 to 50. So anyway, that continued. But I ended up going to court. The first law firm I had in Pittsburgh, they charged me $25,000 for 2 depositions, 1 meeting, maybe 2 meetings. They filed a motion in Washington County Common Police Court. The first judge who was on my case should have recused himself. He knew me. He was on another case. He didn't. I had 2 judges in Washington County Courthouse. The second one, by the way, I graduated high school with. And this is when I had my garage broken into by a roughneck. Took my mini excavator out, my skid steer out, because he got stuck on my property right above my house, came knocking on the door at 25 to 1 in the morning. Buried my skid steer down in the woods. I had to get a chainsaw to cut a tree down to get it out, and we had to run a 100-foot cable to pull it out. We caught the kid. He was from Colorado, 4th day here. He worked for Patterson Drilling. He was a roughneck. The other kid booked. There was 2 kids. They broke into my garage. They broke the window out. They took my machinery out. They tried to take my large excavator. I had it locked up outside. But anyhow, we caught the kid. I went to court. I'm in front of a judge, and this judge, she had never been on my case. Again, this judge graduated with me. So that you know, this judge right now, he is not a judge. He made the papers a few months ago. He's got a state grand jury investigation, a federal grand jury investigation. He was accepting bribes. He was destroying evidence, etc., etc. There's another case that happened 4 miles from my house. The Hallowich family, their case got gagged, and that's the other thing that happens in with this industry. A lot of people that get affected, get sick, have health issues, etc., etc. They're gagged. Now, this Hallowich family, their case got gagged, and of course, this particular judge was the presiding judge over it. Right now, the Pittsburgh Post-Gazette, the Washington Observer Reporter, and Earth Justice have filed amicus to get that, lift that gag. So, and I hope it happens, because the reason why they're gagged, they've all had health issues. Now, there's absolutely this anecdotal garbage that this industry keeps throwing out there. I could take you from county to county to county, because I've done this every day, and I've worked on this almost every day of my life since '05. And I could introduce you to the families who have lost cattle. Anywhere from Terry losing 11. My neighbor lost 5 goats who just lived directly across the road from my farm. I didn't know anything about it. They didn't know what was happening. Here, their spring water was contaminated. That's another thing. The fracks are coming all the way up. And they're not telling people this. I had a driller contact me who was a driller for 28 and a half years, and God rest his soul. I wish he were here today, because he got killed last year in an accident. But there is a limestone seam called the Tully limestone seam that's over top of the Marcellus. And he said, what's happening, they're using such great force and great pressure that it fractures through the Tully limestone, and it comes north. It comes all the way up. And it gets into the water aquifer also. There are a lot of issues here. And they're covering it all up. Every one of them. And there are people that are sick, and there are people that have lost a lot of cattle, and the industry will come back and say, I've heard this wonderful remark that farmers normally lose 20% of their livestock. A year? 20%? I farmed for many, many years. If I lost 1 or 2 calves a year, that was a lot, and that was usually rare. I usually didn't lose any. But every now and then you'd have one, might be born backwards or what have you, and you weren't there. You know, you might have been working, doing something else, and you just didn't get there in time, or the knuckles were too big, and or one leg was back, because I delivered a lot of calves. But if you start connecting the dots, and that's what I've been doing, and I've been feeding this information to a lot of people. The Maryland legislature got it, because I spoke there. I go all over the damn country speaking. I've been to New York probably 7 times. I've been to Maryland 3 times. I've been to Ohio 4 times. They begged me to come to Illinois. I took Terry down to Illinois with me this past spring. Now Illinois is really on board. The NRDC, Dr. Tony Ingraffia, I talked to him on the phone about a couple months ago, and he said, Ron, it's up to you to knock the NRDC off the fence. I said, thank you, Tony, I need more work. He chuckled. I set everything up. They came in from the NRDC, the president, a number of board members. They had meetings with people in Butler County. We had a meeting set up in Fayette County. I had families come in from Washington County. I had families come in from Fayette and Greene County. I only had 12 families there because time was of the essence. After I was done with them, their jaws were in their lap. These stories just continue to grow, folks. The industry suppresses everything because they run this country. It's not the politicians. And everyone has got their heads in the sand. They're watching too much TV. They're watching Dancing with the Stars. They're playing with their computers. They're playing with their iPods. And they're not watching current events and what the hell is happening. And I've heard it so many times where, boy, it's really good that you're doing this. Boy, it's really good you're doing this. Yeah, well, what about you? Can you get off your ass and help?
It's not happening to them.
This is one thing I want you all to do also. Google my name. I have never put myself on the computer once in my life.
You're all over it.
Not once. I don't do that. That's how this is grown, because people film and then they post it. I don't care. But something I want you to know, there's an individual by the name of Tom Rathbun who used to be the secretary or the press secretary for the DEP, who stated that my pond got contaminated by copper sulfate or herbicide, which I don't use any of that garbage. I used to raise, when I did farm, I didn't have any cattle on this farm, by the way, because I bought this farm and I was just trying to get it up and running. It was completely grown up for over probably 30 years. I cleared 80 acres of it. There was 141 acres. So I couldn't do it all. But before that, I farmed, I raised organic beef. But this Tom Rathbun, I just learned, he said my cake, well, I didn't just learn, this story came out like, what, 2.5, 3 years ago, that he stated that my farm, again, my pond was an open and shut case, opened in September of 06, closed in October of 06, and it was either copper sulfate or herbicide. Meanwhile, I find out like 2 years ago, I get an email. He's out on a $250,000 bond. Guess for what? Child pornography.
Oh my God.
He just got sentenced. We just dug a little more on him here just recently because I just kind of let it go. And here he just got sentenced like 13 to 24 months.
That's it.
But wait a minute. Let's take this back one more step. Who was the Attorney General?
Yeah.
Corbett.
Yeah. Jerry Sanders.
There's more to this man, folks.
You're damn right.
There's more to this man.
Yeah.
He's no damn good. He's evil.
Yep,
He is the devil, and there's no question about it.
Right. Yeah. Hell yeah.
He has covered everything up every which way he can to keep putting money into his pocket.
Yeah. And
he doesn't give a damn about any of us. You know, I've been called a tree hugger. I've been called a liberal. I'm none of those. I was a steward of the land. I sold timber on my property. It's got to be done right. Everything has got to be done right.
He's what Bill DeWeese did, jokes he didn't like him.
But when I asked the politicians in my county, my county commissioners, we showed them split estate. That's something else you need to take a look at. Split estate was done by Deborah Anderson. Deborah Anderson filmed out in Garfield County, Colorado. If you watch that, it will open your eyes what went on out there 5, 6 years ago, 7 years ago, probably, at least that long. And how many people got sick. And she did win an Emmy for that, for best research. What we would do, I got that film and I would show it at the libraries. I would rent a library and we'd put a press release in and I would, 20, 30 people would come. That's great. So they could spread the word. Just so, I'm planting the seeds because I know what's going on. I lived in it. I lived a miserable thing and I worked in the industry. So anyhow, none of our commissioners came. Not one of them. They won't even listen. Come out and see the people that are sick. The people who lost livestock. Please. We're not out there, come or we're going to come and kick your ass or we're going to beat you up. Everything was done in a humane way. You're begging them. I mean, you're just about, please, please, please. You're in freaking tears. No. I had a guy, and I'm going to tell you this. My farm was paid for. And I went to the bank back in April of 2009 to get a loan to support my lawsuit against Range. This is what the bank told me. Ron, I've been through Washington County and Greene County. I've seen the roads. I've seen the well sites. I've seen the green tanks, the pipelines. He said, this is all new to the banking industry. We don't know how it's going to work. He said, Ron, I'm going to compare this to the Obama stimulus package. It's all new. We don't know how it's going to work. He said, it doesn't matter how many wells are on your property. It's a commodity. It goes up and down with the market. He said, Ron, also, your farm could have been worth $500,000 for round numbers. Once we have it appraised, it might only be worth $200,000 now since they drilled.
Yep.
He said, in closing, we don't want it. How do you think that makes you feel, folks? After I had about $500,000 sunk into it. So, and then, then I told him, I said, well, there's one more thing I want you to put into your equation here, add to it. I said, we're contaminated. This is something you all got to realize, folks. Everything that's happening reverts back to the federal exemptions. They're exempt from clean air, clean water, safe drinking water, the right to know, the Superfund Act. If it were a benign process, why the hell would you be exempt from the Superfund Act? That's hazardous cleanup. You know why? Because the liability is left upon you, the landowner, you, the community.
Public.
Right. And who did it was Bush and Cheney, the oil men. And if you really want to fire yourself up, type in Bush Paraguay aquifer. Check out what the Bush family bought. The 100,000 acres in Paraguay with one of the world's finest water aquifers, liquid gold. You think they don't know what's going on?
Yeah.
Bottled water.
Trust me, I can't climb a tree tall enough
Paraguay?
to scream this out to the public.
It's a country.
I can't get crowds big enough.
Caraway.
Paraguay.
But this is what's going on. And here's one thing, this guy, I just got this letter and I'll shut up because I could go on and on for hours about this.
I love it.
There's a guy, he just sent me this letter like 3 weeks ago. I don't know him from Adam. His name, it says here, my name is Mark. Well, I'm not going to say his last name, but anyway. I live in blank blank Welsh Road, Washington, PA. I am having noise issues with a compressor station located on Arden Mine Road. If you can help, please write, email me, or call. I call him, which I do. People call me all the time because I'm so active in this. And it's always depressing calls. Good thing I don't get depressed. I just get mad.
Don't get mad.
So, anyhow, I called him. I'm trying to sell my property here. He said, I have a nice home that I built. I put a pond in. It cost me $25,000. I professionally stocked it. He said, I have another piece of property that I want to build another house on. He said, until I move this property, I can't do anything with this other property. He said, this may bankrupt me. He said, the realtors bring clients out. I can't sell it. As soon as they hear that compressor, it's over. I said, you don't know what you're breathing. He goes, oh my God, I didn't think of that. Now that'll take me down another road. A lot of the people that are living around these compressor stations, folks, we're having their blood tested.
Yep.
We're having their urine tested. They've got phenol in their blood. They've got benzene in their blood.
Arson.
They've got arsenic in their
Yep.
blood. They've got toluene. They've got stuff that's going on that they're not used to. We also have a facility now out in our neck of the woods. It's called the Southwestern Pennsylvania Environmental Health Project. This is strictly for the people living around the Marcellus Shale. They've only been open 6 months approximately. They're overwhelmed.
Yeah.
They're overwhelmed on what they're seeing.
We've tested my air.
So, this isn't a pretty picture. And you don't see these advertisements on TV and on the billboards for nothing. They've drilled in Pennsylvania for years. Did you see these kind of advertisements? It's propaganda. They're trying to whitewash everybody here. And this isn't about independence. This is all about export. That's their game. People were bitching to me this past year, why are we paying so much for propane? They're extracting the propane out of our wells up here, and they don't get paid for it. The landowners do not get paid for that. None of those byproducts. And they get the propane, the butane, the hexane. And what have they done? They've got like 10 ports now that they wanted to. The DOE, Department of Energy, wants to convert from import to export. Oh, but this is about independence, and it's going to drive our prices down. Are you kidding me? Wake up, people. If they could sell it to China for $15, do you think they're not going to stick it to us? Oh, no, we'll give it to the United States for $5. Come on. No, that's not how it works. But I could tell you, there's one more thing you need to know. If all of you folks type in sometime when you're on a computer, drilling the West. That's National Geographic. They did this all the way back in, I think, 2008. And you'll be very surprised what was going on out west. They started to shoot in New Mexico, went up through Colorado, Wyoming, and then ended up in Montana. And how the ranchers were just totally blown away by what was happening. Environmental degradation. And there are a lot of people, I have contacts out in Colorado, if they would go back now and film Split Estate, and that's what needs to be done, it will absolutely crush people. How many people have died? How many people have various cancers? How many people have had to get off their ranches and sold it for peanuts, pennies on a dollar? Or they just threw their hands up and walked away. That's also happening in Washington County. They've already been told by doctors and their lawyers to get off their property, find someplace else to live. Well, start all over again, because that's what I got to do, and it's not a pretty picture. Because I'm starting all over again. I don't have a problem starting all over again, because I thank God I'm born with a lot of energy. But it's crippled me every which way possible. Taxes. Emotionally, well, I've got my days.
What about physically?
Physically, well, I had some issues, but I didn't know if it was just from the stress.
Probably. This is stress.
But I did have some issues out there, and I'm an avid archery hunter. And I do know I hunted one time up by the condensate tanks, and I did it once and never would do it again because I got so damn sick up there. I got such a headache, and I got so nauseated. Yep. And I'm like,
And
what?
disoriented, like.
And I came down out of that tree, and then I kept looking at the breathers. That was something else I brought up to a lot of people. I said, take a look at the breathers on the condensate tanks. I kept pointing that out. And don't you know, Range Resources came around about a year later, and they put pop-off valves up on those breathers. So the pressure builds and it'll go. And I used to give tours on my farm. I've been interviewed by 18 different foreign countries. In 2010, Range came in and put cyclone fences around the pad, so I couldn't take anybody up there because I could show you gas bubbling outside the well casing where, oh, he cemented it. It works, right?
Well,
Cement doesn't dry. It doesn't crack when it dries.
We sat on my porch and was looking up at the well. There's Delilah smokes, and we don't smoke in my house. And it was like, and you looked and all this gray stuff was
it'll come right out.
coming right out
And
of
you
the
don't
well.
want to breathe any of that. But one more thing, we did test the water outside the well casing on a vertical well, because I had 2 verticals, 2 horizontals. On that vertical well, it was bubbling outside the casing and the water was black, so we had it tested. I had it tested through Bear Corporation. By the way, that chemist no longer works for Bear. He was talking out against what was going on because he only tested for VOCs. He did not test for any heavy metals. Well, he no longer works for Bear. But long story, and he just left last year. But long story short, in that water there was benzene, toluene, ethyl benzene, xylene, XP xylenes. Everything was at extremely high levels, and all this was ending up into my pond.
I can't imagine what's under my house.
See you, folks.
Thank you.